Here
Hi,
we are.
everybody. Welcome to the Miriam Yager Podcast. I am really excited to be launching this again in a video format. And I want to introduce you all to Joe Brikman. Joe is a former paratrooper in the IDF. He is a very successful realtor. And Joe has had his own journey that we are going to be discussing here today. I also want to mention that this episode is Le'iloi Nishmas Yocheved Garari, a very beautiful young girl who unfortunately was lost way too young. Her light was so bright that we were only able to experience it for a very short time here in this world. And may her neshama have the highest aliyah in Shemayim. So, Joe, I would
Hey,
love to. Thanks for joining me, first of all.
it's my pleasure.
Really appreciate you coming on here.
Of course.
I wanted, yeah, I really want to discuss what your journey with suicidal thoughts was like, because it's a very, very important topic that I think that not enough people cover. I think a lot of people tend to think that this is never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to a loved one. This is so, I think people think it's a lot further away from them than it is. And it's really, truly something many, many people experience, as I have seen professionally, as well as personally from people that I know. So I'm going to go ahead and give it over to you. And if you can share a bit about your story and what it was like for you struggling with that.
Sure. Yeah. I want to take the opportunity just to thank you, for putting something like this together. I don't necessarily know every person in our community, that has ended their life prematurely. But at the same time, every time I hear another story, I really feel for them, and it really gets me emotional. To see that there are just more and more people that are feeling like they don't have somebody to turn to, and they don't have the support that they need. I never felt like I had the support that I needed, and in as much as we try to change and to inspire change in our community, and people being more cognizant and aware of the fact that these things can happen. It pains me, until I was really able to work on myself, and figure out how to come back and fix all of the relationships that I felt that I was missing in my life. I never really felt any sort of completedness, and it was very hard to get there, which led me along this journey of trying to attempt a couple of times at different stages in my life. Every story is different, and every person has their own experiences, and each person that has ever been at a place like this can talk to you about their story specifically. What I chose to do with my story, especially where I'm holding in my life right now, was to take that and to share my experiences and my story with, and the lessons that I've learned with as many people as I can. Like that, to be able to educate people that these kind of things happen in our community, and no matter what it might look like on the outside, what's happening on the inside can be very, very different. And on top of that, to give people that might or have found themselves in a situation that I felt, to where I wanted to just be done with it and over with everything, just to give them like a little bit of empowerment, to tell them that, listen, like, I understand. Not necessarily do I understand completely, because every story is so different and there are so many contributing factors, but I have been at that point in my life multiple times, and I've been able to find power within myself, to continue going, and to continue fighting, and to continue really just pushing uphill, because a lot of people don't realize that what leads up to somebody wanting to, or considering to end their life, and to be done with everything. There's a lot of things that can be pushing them to where they get to that level. It's not that somebody just wakes up one morning and decides, okay, you know what, I'm not happy with my life anymore, I'm done. There's a lot of things that, until eventually as a person you go numb, and once you're in that numb spot, it's really hard to find yourself, to find anything really worth holding on to, because you've exhausted so many chances. I know that a lot of people, especially after, people like these kind of stories come out, there are lots of people that choose to take sides. And, some people will take sides of the parents, some people will take sides of the rabbi, take sides of the person. And it's very important to realize that there really are no sides. It's not, we're united all against this. And it's not a matter of pointing fingers and, who was responsible or who this or who that. At the end of the day, something happened. And the reason why that happened was for a lot of contributing factors. And what we as a community, we need to take responsibility for the fact that mental health issues exist in our community, and mental health issues need to be dealt with. And it's not just, go get a prescription or, go check them into a facility, because at the end of the day, you're looking at a long-term plan that you need to put together, because it's a very real issue. And, just kind of trying to shove it under the rug, that's so, 1980, so 1990, where, just pretend as if these things don't exist and hope it's a good life and keep your child locked up at home. In today's day and age, there are so many people that want to help, and there are so many people that don't and will not judge you for no matter where you're holding, because a lot of the people that want to help are people that have been in situations, similar on their own. And these people have dedicated their whole life to just listening and to being there to help and support other people. So if you're watching this right now and you feel like you're in a similar position, and you came to this podcast to try and find some sort of inspiration, I want this to be the beginning of that revelation to you, to where you realize that you are not alone and there is nothing wrong with you, and everything that you're experiencing is 100% okay. And anybody that you choose to share your inner struggles with, I can promise you that they're going to be receptive, and they're not going to judge you for who you are, and they're not going to judge you for anything that led you. All they're going to try and do is they're going to try and offer you support, and they're going to try and help you. And in order for that to work, you need to take a deep breath, and you need to realize that somebody who's offering their time to help you, that's really all that they want to do. All they want to do is help you. When I first left the community at 18 years old, I was filled with a lot of vengeance, a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, and all of the just negative, as many negative feelings as you can think that are possible. I had all of that. I was spiteful. I would do things just to be able to prove a point. And it took me almost 2 years to realize that all I'm really doing is I'm working against myself. When I came out and I started talking about my experiences, the support was overwhelming. And whether or not that was a good thing, it showed me that on the one hand, there are people that care. And, you're always going to have somebody who has something negative to say, but that's just because, they're not happy with their own life. So now they have to project it onto somebody else. But just because you're feeling a certain way right now does not mean that you're going to feel like that forever. And there are people out there, just like you, Miriam, that are there, to help you and to coach you and to guide you and to show you how you are able to tap in to eternal happiness, because you deserve that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would you be open to sharing some of the experiences that you experienced that led up to feeling those thoughts? And because I think what's very important for people to understand is that it doesn't just happen overnight, like you said, and it doesn't just happen from something small happening to you. Most of the people that I've spoken with, that I've been very blessed to save 2 people in my life from suicide. One was actually when I was a child. Someone that I knew that was very close to me had suicidal thoughts, and honestly, it was literally God put the right words into my mouth, because I did not know what to do to save this person. But what I think what people need to understand is that usually, in my experience, they've been through some very big traumas, and trauma is not something you can't just cover it up. You can't pretend it's not there, because like you said, Joe, what happens is that it just gets buried into your subconscious to the point where you are just living like completely numb. It's like you're the living dead, literally. Like it's the best way to describe it, right? When you're so numb that you don't feel anything. And then what's life worth when you're just nothing is even, there's no way to access any joy, any feeling of happiness at all, then everything just becomes really dark. So if you would be able to, if you're open to sharing some and anything that you're open to sharing would be, I think, very helpful for the audience.
Sure. So one of the now I spend a lot of my time, my free time, talking to people, and lots of people reach out to me, just to kind of tap into. I like to project myself, as projecting in today's day and age is used as a negative word, but that all really depends on how you want to kind of share that. I like that when people come across me, or whether they meet me in person or meet me on a phone conversation or meet me online and on social media, for them to be able to feel that there's a positive energy emanating from anything and everything that I do. And that is something that I really felt that I'm able to share, because I've been like you said, I've been through some really traumatic experiences. The one thing that a lot of people know me for, a couple of years ago, I came out and I started talking about sexual abuse that I experienced as a child. That for me was something that it controlled me for a good amount of years, to where I would guilt myself for certain ways that I was feeling, for waking up in the middle of the night, in the yeshiva dorm room in cold sweat, and not really being sure what to do. It led to me doing a lot of things to where I had to prove myself that I was incapable, to where I had to, because and I was on a Clubhouse stream yesterday, with a group of people, where there were two moms there that were talking about sexual abuse and how it affects their kids, and looking at it from kind of the opposite perspective, right? It took me about 4 years to realize that there is no need for me to blame myself for what I've been through, because I'm not responsible for that. It's not something that I was able to really control. And the after effects, obviously these are things that I have to deal with on a personal level, but it doesn't define who I am. And it until you can get clarity, on the fact that you are not responsible for for the things that you're not responsible for, but at the same time, you're learning how to take responsibility for the future. That was one of the things that for me was a fundamental change that I had to make. And dealing with sexual abuse and trauma, and then in yeshiva, there was a principal that, I'm publishing all of this in my books, so I'm just kind of going off, the timeline. There was a principal who really felt it important to let me know how he felt, about me and my scholastic capabilities and my capabilities as a person. He would always tell me that I wouldn't even be able to get a job at McDonald's, because even at McDonald's, I have to keep to a schedule. So all these different I wasn't like that kid, who wouldn't show up to class. I would show up to class and finish all of the material early, and then I would continue learning on my own material. And he just didn't like the fact that I didn't conform. So to me, in that whole mindset that I had, it was also, okay, conformity is something that I don't want to do, right? So I would always find opportunities to not conform, which in turn, would make management, if you will, upset. So my whole life was kind of built around, okay, how can I do things to where I would avoid management, until realizing that, and then I would throw the whole idea of structure out the window. So until I left yeshiva and I was homeless, and I had to figure out my life on my own, and re-own my own structure, and realize that I'm in control of who I allow in my life and how I decide to structure my life. I feel like, had I been able to realize that much early on, that I'm not responsible for the feelings that I'm feeling, however, I do need to take control of them. Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned before, feelings are triggered by your emotions and your subconsciousness. So even though you're feeling certain ways, it doesn't necessarily mean now that that feeling is going to control your whole life. Because if you're going to let this feeling to control your whole life, that you're taking away the power that you have as a human being to create your own destiny and to create your own future. And I'm a very big believer in energies. Everything that you put out eventually will come back to you. So had I realized at 14, 15, when my dad got sick, and my dad was sick with cancer for 7 years until he passed away, and then going through the whole yeshiva system until I eventually left, You know, had I realized that I was in control of these things a lot sooner, and had I realized that I can actually define my destiny and where I want to go, then I think it would have made this whole process a lot easier. And also, had I been receptive to other people, you know, one of the big things for me was when I first started talking about this. I remember it so clearly. It was a couple weeks before my bar mitzvah, and the person who abused me was a babysitter that was around in the community, female babysitter, which doesn't, you know, when I first started talking, people were like, "What? Are you sure?" You know, because the statistics are that male individuals are normally the aggressors. And when I started talking, you know, from my end, saying, "Hey, you know, this was a female," people took the opportunity to really dig into my story and try and cross examine it. And I did give in to the cross examination because I felt that that was something that I had to do. And, you know, I'm just grateful that I had the inner strength to be able to continue pushing through, even though there were people that questioned and doubted. But I remember so clearly how, you know, my parents felt really guilty. And, you know, there was nothing available at the time. Going back 15, I was 12 at the time and I'm 24. So 12 years ago, going back 12 years ago, there wasn't really any kind of support system for parents as there is now. And there were barely any systems supporting, you know, people like myself as kids who were dealing with all of this. And there was a lot less research and statistics and things to go on. So obviously my parents did everything that they were able to do in order to help me start dealing with it. But the help in and of itself wasn't necessarily the most cutting edge because there weren't many people coming forward and talking about it at my age. And really the only thing that triggered me was the fact that this woman was going to be a guest and on the invitation list to my bar mitzvah, which I said, listen, it's either me or her. Like, and that's when my parents realized that there was really something wrong. And then a couple months later, my father was diagnosed with cancer. So not that I was put on the back burner, but you know, I mean, if you're dealing with somebody's life and you're dealing with me, you know, obviously, you know, my mom and my father did everything that they were able to do to give me that support. But because of where my mental health was already then, I wasn't able to see it as support. And anytime, you know, they would offer me, you know, things that I didn't like or things that I didn't agree with, and all of a sudden it became to hate or trying to harm me. And then my crocodile brain, which is also something that I break down in my book. I break down the 3 different parts of the brain and how they work because a lot of people aren't familiar with it. But my fight or flight mechanism, which is something that maybe people here on the live stream would recognize a little quicker, that mechanism was engaged and automatically it was like, okay, you know, I got to get out of here because, and after doing that so many times and torching so many opportunities, eventually, you know, I found myself by societal standards, successful, you know, living in a penthouse on the beach in the water in Bell Harbor, but at the same time, not being happy and, you know, not wanting to continue living this life because all of the emotional baggage that I had to carry around with me everywhere, I just wanted it to stop and I couldn't figure out a way to stop. And, you know, it found me on the balcony of the 22nd floor, you know, of the building, of the top floor of the building, really trying to figure out, you know, what my options are over here. So, you know, to anybody that's watching this live stream and can relate to anything that I'm talking about, you know, I want to tell you that I'm sitting here right now. I'm happy, healthy. I'm married to the most amazing person in the world. And, you know, thank God my career is slowly picking up, even though I had to pivot, you know, since COVID happened. So I do want to show you that I am living proof that it's possible to dig yourself out of this and that it's possible to create a better life for yourself.
Yeah, can you talk you know, a bit about when you found yourself on the 22nd floor of the balcony? What was going through your mind and what kept you from going forward? Like what held you back?
So I mean, it's kind of hard to go back to those exact moments because I'm in the middle of a work day and I cannot
Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry.
you know, really go back and revisit all of that.
Yeah.
But in kind of a condensed version, you know, like now I can smile when I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
And
I
you know,
guess,
the
I
way
guess
that
it's
I've
a lesson, like something that anyone, if anyone were to face them, face such a situation, what can they draw on? That's what I'm looking for. What
sure.
we can do them.
So to give you a little bit of context, right? Like right now, I can openly sit here and I can talk about this because this is something that's way back in my past.
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
1100 and something days, since I've
Yeah.
felt any kind of suicidal feelings or anything like that, and I've been through close to 70 hours of EMDR therapy, rapid eye
Wow.
movement
Yeah.
desensitization.
Yeah.
For anybody that's not familiar with it, so I've spent a
Yeah.
lot of time on that, and I've just taken all of these traumatic like filings in my head, these MP4s, and I just
Yeah.
desensitized to them. So even though I don't even have the images. I just have what I wrote down. Because I basically just deleted all of that from memory. And now I can sit here and I can smile,
Yeah.
talking about it because I can
Yeah.
realize that, where I was then, it was such a pivotal moment in my life. And it had to happen to me 3 times to where I felt like, okay, that's it. I'm failing, to where this was my only way out, in order for me to realize that, you know what, not only is this not my only way out, but this is actually one of the biggest, most pivotal stepping stones in my life. And I can
Right.
choose to either allow this feeling to dictate where I'm going to be going, or I can turn the page and I can just continue start writing a whole new chapter. And if someone's looking back and you want to ask me for my biggest takeaway is to take a deep breath. Allow yourself to embrace the emotions that you're feeling and work through them. A lot
Yeah.
of people, myself included, and I'm going to start talking about I'm not going to start talking about a lot of people. I'll talk about so people can relate to me a little more. Myself, most of my life, repressed a lot of the feelings that I was having, because social conditioning, and I knew we were going to bring this up, so you know what, we're going to use the word. Social conditioning is one of those things that, as a man, in order for me to, kind of have my man card, I'm not allowed to be talking about. I'm not allowed to cry. I'm not allowed to, have certain feelings of anxiety, depression, or any of those kind of things. I'm not allowed to openly talk about any of those things. And people these days, and I did not realize that is something that's so, out of style. It's something that in the 80s, 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, it was a very big thing, to show who's more macho, who can eat more, suck more shit up, and not have to, pop. But until you realize that if you ever look at a champagne bottle, the harder you shake it, the faster the cork is going to pop. So the more you add into this bottle, and the more you shake, the more trauma, the more experiences that you go through, the more things that you build up in your life, that you don't give yourself the opportunity to vent and to let everything out, eventually it's going to explode.
Yeah.
So our society today is so weak, to a point that showing weakness in and of itself is considered being weak. And if you if you give yourself an opportunity to really sit back and realize that really the only way that most people, until they learn how to use their words, right? How do children communicate? They communicate using their emotions. They cry, they scream, they shout, they laugh, they're happy, they smile. Sharing all of these kind of emotions is actually the best form of communication. But there's happened that in life, we all take these different chances to where we trust somebody maybe that we shouldn't have, or we do something that we shouldn't have, and we feel like embarrassment. We feel ashamed for the things that we couldn't accomplish. And that's because we set expectations for ourselves, and the expectations sometimes that we set for ourselves are non-realistic. And I'm not here to turn around and tell you now that setting goals and trying to maximize your potential every single day is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that when you try to stack on too much too quickly, I mean, imagine trying to pull a tractor trailer, with a car. It's not going to work. And not only that, you'll damage the car, right? You need to use a pickup truck, especially in Texas, that,
Yeah.
pulling all these different things, where you need to have a truck, and sometimes you need to have a truck that has more power in order to be able to pull the load that's behind you. So don't think that, driving your car, you're going to be able to pull all of the baggage with you. You're going to have to pull over, and you're going to have to leave some of the baggage that's sitting in your trunk. You're going to have to leave it on the side of the road. And you're going to
Absolutely.
have to find a way to where you can dispose of it to where it's not going to
Yeah.
hold you back. Because then what's going to happen? I like road tripping a lot, and I've done a lot of driving in my life. Your gas mileage is going to go down. You're going to have to change your tires sooner. Maybe something will happen under the hood because you're not using the vehicle the way it's supposed to be used. And if you look at us human beings, right, our fuel is water, and our brain fuel is all of these things, like coming on podcasts like this and looking to really try and, push your mental development to where you're challenging yourself to become a better person. And if you don't tap into if you don't use the right type of fuel, then the engine won't start, and eventually you'll stall out. And
Yeah.
that's where people get to where, a lot of people that I know push off. I myself also sometimes push off, an oil change on my car. But after 400, 500 miles, the car starts driving differently. And you realize that you have to go and change it no matter. It's a half hour, it's pain, but you have to go do it. And for us and for myself as human being, it's important as well to check in periodically for these oil changes.
Yeah.
And just circling back to go for a full circle on your question, learning how to comfortably and how to healthily express your emotions with other people and share them. Confident men share their emotions. Confident
Yeah.
women share their emotions because it
Absolutely.
doesn't make a difference what anybody else has to say with how I'm feeling. It's how I feel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm entitled to feel. The only thing that you're entitled to in this world is your own personal space and your own personal feelings. And you can feel however you want, but in as much as that you're able to feel however you want, you are also in control of your pain, and you're also in control of your happiness. So you
Yeah.
can determine what situations are going to cause you pain, what situations are going to bring you happiness, and what things you're going to just desensitize yourself from in a healthy way to where you don't start flipping out, every time something happens to where you feel a little triggered. Toughen up a little bit, not in a way of, taking away any kind of weight that or any kind of emotions that you may be feeling, but learning how to own them and learning how to really take these emotions and make them yours and
Yeah.
use them in a way to where you're not just sitting at home, upset and hating your life, which will eventually bring you to, you can have it all, but if you're not happy, then what's it all worth? Money can buy everything. It can even buy happiness, but it's a short-term happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness really comes from within. And if you're able to really own the feelings that you're feeling, and you're able to own who you are as a person and realize that anything and everything that led up to today that was beyond your control is not your fault.
Yeah.
And taking that newly found power that you now have, realizing that you are in control of your pain, you are in control of your happiness, you're now able to sit down. And I'm a very big fan of goal planning and vision planning and writing things down and tracking your success. You can build for yourself a roadmap to where you see yourself in 5 years, break that down to what you need to do annually on a 12-month basis to get there, break it down to a 30-day, what you do every 30 days, and then break it down to a weekly, and then break it down daily, and realize what you need to do every single day in order to bring you to your end goal at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I want to touch on what you were saying about the emotional part. It's one of the biggest tools that I always tell people. I love to share with people that something that I've developed on my own, as part of my professional life, is really a total self-care package, which is what it looks like is take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually every day. Now, I know that to most people, this seems like a really, really big thing, right? But I want to touch on the emotional aspect. So firstly, I want to say that I'm going to go into it at a different point, or maybe I'll get to it later in the conversation. But the emotional piece is very, very important. And what's important for you people to understand is you have to feel the emotion in the moment. When you don't, and you say, okay, I'm going to leave it for later, I don't have time, I'm going to process it later, that's when it's very easy for it to kind of like fester inside of you. And instead of you feeling like, so say for example, you got upset at somebody and you were really upset, but you decided that like, I don't have time to deal with it, I've got something else going on. The feelings are only going to grow, and you're going to get angrier and angrier and more upset at the person. And versus if you were to deal with it in that moment. And something very fascinating that I've noticed myself is that when you allow yourself to feel the emotions, and especially when it's like something really big, like something that really did not go your way, on the other side of allowing yourself to feel it and to cry if you need to, and whatever you need to do, is actually an awakening from God. It's the most incredible thing that all of a sudden, like you'll feel the feelings and you'll let it go when you're like, when your body, I love to say, it's like, don't hang on to the feelings, right? It's not like, it doesn't mean feel it and then just get depressed and let it ruin your day. It's like, feel it for as long as you need to, until you'll actually feel a sensation physically that, like, okay, I've felt it, now I can let go, I can move on. And on the other side of that, it's so incredible the way Hashem has created us, that like we'll literally have an awakening where all of a sudden a thought will pop up that will be the exact solution, that will actually even be better oftentimes than what we would have been able to step into had we not felt that way, had we not like had that negative experience. Something else that sorry.
No, I said 100%. Like,
Yeah.
leaning into it and feeling the emotion. So I'll give you an example, right? Last week, so I'm a real estate agent in Miami Beach, right? And I just got started with my company, and thank God everything is going along the way. Thursday, I got an email from the National Association of Realtors telling me that my brand, which then was the Modern Day Realtor, goes against the policy and the guidelines, that I have to change my whole brand. Somebody reported me. So here I am, right? I just placed a big order for t-shirts that have my logo on it, and for business cards, and for, everything that has my brand name on it. Now I'm like, oh my God, now I have to figure all of this out because I'm out all this money, and what's going to happen. So thankfully, go ahead and cancel it, right? So I didn't have to worry about all the money being spent. It's a blessing. But at the same time, I want to go on into what you were talking about, really feeling the emotions and really owning them. Because as you feel an emotion, you're able to, your brain will forever remember how you felt while going through that emotion. And this is where it's very important to teach yourself how to categorize things. Because if you now are going to sit and, take for example, right, this experience, now I had to turn around and pivot and change my entire brand, change 80 different websites, and update everything with logos and emails, and everything, and then sign them back, an affidavit saying that I changed it and I won't use it again. All of these like extra things, it brought me back. So in the first 15 minutes, it brought me back to where I was about 5 years ago, when I lost my whole company. And, I left for 2 weeks. I left everything because my father passed away, and we were doing shiv on everything in New York. And I come back to the company, which was relocating, and everything is gone. So I had to, rebuild myself. It was already the second time that I was trying to do that. And then I allowed myself to hit this negative, loop that I call it, and come into what I call the triangle of doom, which is where you kind of go from the top to the corner, to the corner, to the corner, to the corner. But at the same time, you're in the same little thing. So you're on a high of, wow, this is happening to me. What do I do? And then you're on a low of, oh shit, this is happening to me. Like, I can't do anything. And then you come back up to the top and you realize, hey, I can go do whatever I want, because this experience is just a stepping stone. Yeah. And I can allow it to step on me, or I can step on it. But either way, somebody over here needs to go down so I can go up. And if you take it as an experience to where, listen, I felt this panic, and I've never had a panic attack in the last year. I've never felt such an intense panic because, I have my wife, all of these people that are looking at me and everything that's going on. And this is my job as a man, to be a provider, right? And now I can't even do that. So I feel this insane feeling of helplessness, or I can turn around and say, hey, all I got to do is, send my brand specialist an email, and send my logo designer an email, and send this guy an email. Next thing you know, the logo was changed, the brand was changed, there's a new name, ready to go Monday morning, And it's, once you really experience that feeling, I'm now able to turn around and say, so there's two ways that you can handle it, right? You can turn around and say, okay, I never want to experience this feeling again. Why? Because it shuts me down, and I don't know how to function from it. These are people, and I was this person who for a really long time, I would never allow myself to feel emotions. Now, there may be some people on this live stream that believe in stoicism. I believe in that as well, and I follow a lot of that. But at the same time, there's a difference between being stoic and not allowing yourself to feel emotions. I can talk about a little later, but if you allow yourself to process the emotion and completely live through it all the way, then what ends up happening is now when you experience this again, you are able to come to a logical decision that having a mental breakdown and having a complete spaz is not worth it. It was not worth it for me to try and attempt. Why was it not worth it for me to try and attempt? Because look where I am now. I mean, people ask me if I'm happy. I mean, look at the smile on my face. Everything I do, it's just I find a way to bring it into my life to where it can add to happiness, and if it can increase the quality of other people's lives too, then hey, look at me. I'm at a position in my life to where I can influence other people for the good too. So feeling an emotion is very, very important for the growth process, but at the same time, it's also very important to remember why you're allowing yourself to dig into this emotion and why you're allowing yourself to experience this. And do you want to come out of this stronger, and do you want to own it like that you can continue building where you are in your life? Or do you want this to be an excuse for a while? Come December of 2021, you're going to look back and say, oh, what a shit year I had. Yeah, because, in January, something happened and I just messed up my whole year. Really taking ownership over here. And it's very hard to come out and start taking ownership when you're used to just pushing blame on everybody. So in order to do that, if you're watching this video right now, or if you're listening to this on a podcast, or if you're watching this on a replay, I do want to share with you something that I have done, which has helped me show myself that a lot of these experiences and a lot of these things that I go through, I give them too much meaning. I allow this one little thing to come in and to control my life, which in reality, it's just another stepping stone. So for example, right, I sat down in my office Thursday, right over here, right in this chair, literally the same exact setup as I am right now. And I closed my eyes and I took a deep breath and I told myself, I utterly failed at building my new company. I utterly failed at making my wife happy, whatever these things may be. And I sat down and I said that 50 times. And in the beginning, I was emotional. I was tearing up. My brain was going nuts. But the more I said that, I realized, what the fuck? I am not utterly failing at anything. I am doing everything that I can to continue moving forward. So after you say anything like that so many times, my brain was like, no, dude, you didn't utterly fail at anything. You went out there, you got your feet wet, you started getting just feedback on everything that you were doing. And next thing you know, you realize, oh my God, this is literally just another step in everything that I'm trying to do. This is another step in the process. So although it might look to me like I am an utter and complete failure, there's a new logo that I just put out, which means that obviously I'm not failing because I'm learning how to pivot. So if you do want to sit there and you do want to tell yourself that you're a complete failure, you have full permission to do that. But there's one rule, there's one caveat. And the one catch is that you need to say it at least 50 loud. So you need to say that at least 50 times, and you need to say that out loud. Why? Because when you talk to yourself, you're able to talk to your subconscious. Your ears, when you hear things, actually talk to the inner voice. I believe that everybody has an inner voice that kind of controls them. And when you talk to your inner voice, you're able to reprogram it. And when you turn around and you say, you know what? Yes, I utterly failed at whatever it is that I did. And you say that again and again and again and again, and you realize, no, I didn't. And I'm giving myself too much room here to make a mountain out of a molehill, and I'm giving myself this big roadblock in my head. It has nothing to do with where I physically am. And when you give yourself that opportunity to really embrace the feeling and to really own the failure, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up coming out on top. Because a lot of people, and I myself, when I started feeling these feelings, I would shut down. I'd be like, okay, well, the feeling sucks. And it really hurts to feel, because now everything I do, I feel like people are looking at me and they're like, what's going on in his life? Until I realized that nobody cares. Nobody cares. So when you stop giving yourself, permission to be just upset and to take all of these feelings and turn them to negative, and you start forcing yourself to pivot out of it and to just use that as a way to become better and stronger, then this exercise, I think, can be life-changing, so long as you make sure that you're doing it in a way where you're standing up, you're talking out loud, and you're allowing yourself to hear that. Because as you say that, you realize how ridiculous it sounds.
Yeah. Another tool I love to tell people is to flip the thought in your mind. Like, instead of like you say to yourself, like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person. Well, how are all the ways I'm really an amazing person? And that it's very fascinating when you ask yourself the opposite question. It's amazing how many thoughts you'll have that all of a sudden you'll be like, wow, no, I've really got this going for me and that going for me, and it's a really, really powerful thing as well. I want to talk for a few minutes about the sexual abuse aspect of what you had kind of brought up earlier, because I feel like this is an extremely important topic for people within the world, but even more so, more specifically within our community, to understand that the numbers of people that are sexually abused are a lot higher than most people think. It's 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 3 women are abused, mostly in childhood is actually extremely common, and 1 in 6 males. And so it's think about your circle, right? 1 in 3 people, there's definitely somebody that personally. And it has nothing to do with the family they came from. It has nothing to do with the upbringing. Like, you can see people from the most religious families, people from all different backgrounds, all different family situations. And it's an unfortunate, very unfortunate thing that happens. And it's a lot more common than people think. So firstly, that, secondly, what I want to speak to is that there is so much help out there. Unfortunately, I feel like this topic has been brought a lot, since the Me Too movement, and thank God it's been brought out into the open. But what I find, and this is definitely, I see that thankfully, you've really taken the opposite approach. But what I see is a lot of times people get stuck and they're like, this happened to me and poor me, and I'm going to be a victim for life.
No, don't worry, I was there.
Yes, there. Yeah. No, initially, of course, 100%. Everybody starts there because it's a really horrific thing. I mean, it's listed as the biggest trauma, right? The worst form of abuse that somebody can experience, right? I mean, it literally strips you. So I'm not going to go into all the things that it, that it does, because, that's, what I really want to focus is that I want people to understand that there is healing, and not only is there healing, but there's healing to the point where you can completely transform it. And what I would say to people is that so many people start this journey later in life. Sometimes you notice it, when you're young, you're able to actually verbalize it and express it to parents, but many people have only been able to even remember it. Like, they've buried it in their subconscious in their 30s and their 40s, even in their 60s. And what people need to understand is that it is so important for you to process those feelings. And those feelings are going to feel like you are going to choke, like you can't exist within them. But it's so important to one of my favorite tools to use is to really get in touch with your body and get in touch with your 5 senses as you are processing these emotions. So, exercise is an excellent way to really be able to release a lot of the emotions that you're feeling, to be able to it gives you that rush of endorphins that allows you to kind of breathe through it all. EMDR is fantastic for helping people release the trauma, to heal PTSD, to heal dissociation. Just please know that there is help available. And if this is something that you've experienced, I've actually created a course helping people heal from narcissistic abuse, which is a separate topic and so much I may cover in a different podcast, but I have given it to people to help them heal from all forms of abuse, and it's helped people heal from sexual abuse, from emotional abuse, from physical abuse. So this is just something that, just know that there is help available. I'm also in touch with some incredible people who have healed people beyond what was what most psychologists even say is even possible. So just know that there's hope, know that there is light, and know that from the deepest and darkest pain comes the brightest light. If you have experienced something so deep and so traumatic, it is literally, Hasidus teaches that every single thing that God does is for our very best. And this is only something that I've learned recently as an adult. And it was the biggest game changer, right? Like, imagine, Joe, if we learned this as kids, right? Like, how much more empowered we'd
So
be.
growing up, I grew up in a Chabad yeshiva.
Right.
It's so funny how you're mentioning this kind of from the opposite perspective, because to me, all of these things were things like I was like, okay, so based off what I learned, right, is that you were able to influence things that are going on in your life. I was trying to understand why me as a child who's 8, 9 years old, right? What did I do to warrant this, right?
Right.
And like you were saying before, you need to realize that the statistics that we have are only from the people that have spoken, are only from the people that have been out there and have said something. So there were so many people. Now, when I found out, that there was help and that there were people who will come after, these people and put them away or, take legal action against them, I went back to every single family that I know that this woman, babysat at, and I tried to get in touch with the families, and the families just wouldn't have any interest in talking or sharing anything or even asking their kids, because there's this very big stigma that we have in today's day that you have to look good for the community. You have to look good for the community. And, all of these people that show up to these community events and look like they're perfect, they probably have 4 angry kids at home that are all upset and that they're not sure how to deal with. And they're scared that there are people in the community that'll see that and that'll think that it'll affect them. So if there are any parents that are watching this right now, I'm not a parent myself, but I do want to just tell you that I can promise you that how your kids are choosing to grow and how they are, taking their experiences and changing them. I wish that I had, the support from everybody in my life a lot sooner than where I had to go improve myself in order to get that support. But, for parents, like, fuck what the community says. And I'm sorry for using that word so many times on your podcast. I really try to not, but at the same time, it really doesn't fucking matter what your community has to say about the way that you're raising your kids.
Absolutely.
Because you, as a parent, have the complete opportunity to influence your kids however you want. And just because somebody says that they don't think something is appropriate, go right ahead. It has nothing to do. Every family can do however they want. And if somebody else doesn't approve of you, then you know what? You might have to distance yourself from them, because these might be people who are trying to limit you. When you deal with all of these emotions and you have all these people that are coming from these communities, all of these statistics are collected from people that are considered OTD, that are considered that they don't exist in the community. Why does it have to come to that? To where the community feels that these people need to be included when these people actually came from the community. So it takes time for you as a person to realize that, listen, you know what? There are lots of people out there that are lacking confidence, lots of people out there that, just aren't, hang on one second, that there's some people there that don't have the confidence or don't even have their own pedestal to stand on. They're standing on someone else's, who's standing on someone else's, who's standing on someone else's, who's standing on someone else's, which might be a rabbi. So when you're trying to build it all around, this one little thing, let me tell you something I learned in business. When I first started in business and I saw somebody succeeding, I tried to do everything that they were doing in order to be successful. I try to copy them, right? Now there's this quote that goes, imitation is the best form of flattery. And I never understood it until I tried to copy somebody. Because it's flattery, because you think that by copying somebody else, you're going to be able to have and achieve the same results that they did. You don't know the plan that the person had when, you don't know the plan that the person had when they started doing what they were doing, right? Nobody knows, like even for you as a coach, nobody knows your marketing playbook. Nobody knows what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. So even if 5 coaches pop up in your area all of a sudden that are doing the same thing, let them go ahead and do it, because they don't have the foundation
Absolutely.
that you have, and they don't have the knowledge that you have, and they don't have the experience that you have either.
Absolutely.
So I want you to take this message also as and this is, how I believe. I have friends that call me, that say, I'm nervous about, my kids. I'm 24, so I have friends that have been married for a while that are having kids, and they're nervous and they want, tips and things like that. And I tell them straight up, I say, listen, go with your gut. There is no one-stop shop, or there is no one-size-fits-all for anything. And if you're
Yeah.
going to try and, fit yourself to meet other people's dimensions, then at the end of the day, you'll realize that you might show up with the smallest table.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And something else that I feel is very important to really bring up, because you were mentioning, kids, and is that I wish I could like get this message across to everybody, because what a vital role as parents we play in our children to educate them so that they understand what's healthy and what's not healthy, so that they can please God, avoid being abused, God forbid, sexually, and that if they are, they can at least have the language to share with the adults in their life. So one of the things that is extremely important, this is so, so essential, is for you to teach your children the right names of the body parts. There's no, like, giving them all these different cutesy names is not helpful, because if God forbid something were to happen to them, they could never have the language in which to tell you. Really teaching them that, their body is their body, and it's not okay for anybody to touch them in an inappropriate way. Also really giving them full autonomy over their body, and not like being super mindful not to control their body in any way. Not to force hugs or kisses or tickles or anything that like just makes them feel uncomfortable. It's really important for them to know and understand that you're going to respect their body. And to really, I think there's kind of two sides of people that I see. People go on either of two sides. Either they like to pretend that it doesn't exist, which I've personally had a conversation with another mom, which is why I said I just wish everybody would hear this, and like, because I don't want, God forbid, anyone's child. I have 3 children, and I would do anything in the world to protect them from something like so painful happening to them. And just, I've had moms literally just laugh me off and be like, no, this isn't going to happen in our community. And it's like, no, I'm actually aware. I have a friend, a dear friend, who is in the mental health space, whose child was actually experiencing this. So you need to know that you need to, people either go to not believing in it, or actually understanding it, saying we have to teach them, but it's also important to understand their children and to not scare them and not tell them, all the stories about sexual abuse, but rather just empower them with all the right tools, and to be a listening ear.
Exactly.
So that they feel comfortable.
100%. That's the word. You see, as human beings, we love to share. People love to talk because they like to get validation from other people, and they like, to that their ideas are accepted. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really is nothing wrong with that. But one thing that you'd learn, when you're shifting over now, when you introduce yourself as a professional coach, right? People look at you a different way than had you just been somebody that they met in Starbucks that's talking to them about mental health, right? So as a parent, I think the biggest issue that I had as a kid was that I felt that my parents let me down. And until I was able, and they didn't do anything. My parents, there was nothing that they would have been able to do that would have minimized or that would have stopped anything that happened to me. And not only that, once they found out, they did everything that they were able to, and they turned over mountains and, would do anything to take that back. But once something like that happens, right, it's important that 3 things, really. Number one, it's important that, from a really young age, as your kids start going out and around, teaching them that there is such a thing as boundaries, and that, they do need to learn that, and reinforcing it. There are lots of books that can teach you about that, and there are lots of things that you can read that will teach you how to do that as a parent. And then, like you said, listening and paying attention and listening to what they say. Kids will tell you everything if you just give them an opportunity to talk.
Yes.
As will clients, and as will people. You just need to. You have two ears and one mouth, and the reason for that is because you should be doing more listening than talking. And if you give yourself the opportunity to sit and to listen, then you'll be able to hear all of these things. And the most important thing is that if, God forbid, you ever come into a situation to where you learn that somebody has been the subject of sexual abuse, or that somebody is experiencing something along the spectrum of pain or trauma, or anything that can be debilitating to one's psyche, it's very important to be there for them as a support, and to just reassure them that, number one, they're not alone. Number two, that they're going to get the help that they deserve, because they deserve that as a human being, and they're entitled to get in touch with it. And they will have an opportunity to overcome this, because something like this, there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people every single year that are between the ages of 30, 40, 50, 60, and are only now talking about things, maybe because the person that did it to them just died, so they feel safe, or the person that did it to them is now in prison, or whatever it is. People are now out there going to talk. And I do want to tell you that there is no timeline that you need to wait in order to start talking about these things, because the sooner that you give yourself the opportunity to really start feeling these feelings and really start going through the experiences, the sooner you'll be able to let them go and start creating a new reality for yourself. And you do not have to find yourself on a bridge, or on a balcony, or on a rooftop, intoxicated, trying to figure out what to do with your life, in order to realize that there's so much more to life. As soon as you start feeling these feelings, it's very okay to pull over on the side of the road for 10 minutes, or to stop what you're doing for 10, 15 minutes, or to just, let the people around you know that right now is not a good time. You just need some time, and it's okay to cancel appointments. It's okay to cancel your day. It's okay to do whatever you have to do in order to maintain your own mental health congruency, and to keep yourself really well-rounded and strong, to where you are in control of everything that comes in and out of your life. And if you need the tips and you need the tricks in order to be able to learn how to do that, I'm sure you, Miriam, offer that in my book as well, which is due to be released tomorrow. Is really excited for that. I've been working on that for almost 5 years now.
Wow.
So it's been a long time coming, and there's so much information and so much support out there, just like you said, that anybody who needs any help in any aspect, in any angle, in any way, in any level, can tap in and can find the help that they need, and can find the support that they need. And if you do not find it anywhere else, then the two people that are sitting on this video will be more than happy to do everything that we can to validate your feelings, and to make sure that you feel connected and that you don't feel alone. Because at the end of the day, what do you have in life if not for the people around you, if not for other human beings, if not for other people that can help you get to where you're going, and people that can reassure you when you're feeling scared, and people that can help you see the bigger light and see the bigger picture when you're a little narrow focused, and I would even go out and say closed-minded, because you're stuck on this one thing that might not even be the make it or break it for anything. It's just something that you're giving too much meaning to. And for myself, it's very easy to now come and say that, because, everything that I'm saying now, I'm desensitized to, both for the good and for the bad. Sometimes I can come across harsh or crass to other people in talking about these things, because, I just don't have any real feeling for it. And I really look at that as a blessing every single day, because I'm not controlled by any of these things. And it is very, very possible in a very short time span to be able to start working on yourself to where you have the tips and tricks that you need to not have to always fall back into a negative spiral, and to embrace your feelings, and to really take ownership of the person that you were in the past and the person that you will become in the future. Not necessarily are you responsible for any of that. However, the future is your responsibility, and you have the complete control to define that. And the only one who can decide that is you. So anybody that's listening to this podcast, I want to challenge you right now to take a piece of paper and to write down 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that you're struggling with, and to every single one of those things, I want you to give me 3 possible solutions. Because every single issue that you have, if you take a minute to sit down and to write them out on paper or to talk them out loud or share them with somebody else, you'll realize not how minimal this issue is, but how easy it is to overcome and how easy it is to draw power from these lows to really propel you up high.
Yeah, yeah. I love how beautifully you put it, because it's so true. The power is really truly within us, and we have the ability and the choice to make a change and transform our future into something really, really beautiful. I want to congratulate you, Joe, for your book. It's a very big accomplishment. I'm
Thank you
looking
very much.
forward to seeing it, and
Yeah.
I want to thank you. Yeah, do you have something you want to say on it?
On that, I mean, I'll just
Yeah,
say
on
that
your book.
if you're listening back, by the time that this podcast will be available, the book will probably be live. So if you want to
Right.
see more, you can go to my website, fixingbrokenthebook.com. It's Fixing Broken the Book. And you can, see there the reviews that I have, the whole idea of everything. But real quick, it's broken down into 4 parts, and the whole idea of it is that no matter where you're holding and what struggles you're facing in your life, you can open the book to that specific part, and you'll be able to find the solutions that you need right now immediately. And then you can read the rest of the book whenever. But the most important part is that you're able to find the solutions to the struggles that you're facing without having to actually make those mistakes again and again and again, and to just snap yourself out of it a lot sooner.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to thank you. I want to wrap up and thank you, Joe, for joining me. If you are watching and you are a coach or a life coach, I want to let you know that I'm opening up spots for my marketing mastery to build a profitable business while making an impact in the world. So if that is you, you can go ahead and private message me or book a call to speak with me on my website, miriamyager.com/apply. And thank you all of you in the audience, for watching and commenting. And if you have any questions, drop them below. Joe and I are both available to answer them. All right. Wishing everybody a wonderful and blessed day.
I go one step further and I say, make it a great day. Now it's
Yes.
your responsibility to do that.
I like it. All right. Take care, everybody.
Have a good day.